5:14 local time in the Gulf of Oman, and the USS Destroyer's bridge falls into the kind of silence that means everything is about to change. 3 surface contacts on the radar scope have just altered course simultaneously, not the gradual drift of merchant traffic or the parallel shadowing of routine escort, but coordinated turns executed with the precision that only comes from ships working together toward a single objective. The officer of the deck maintains his steady tone as he calls out bearings and ranges, but every sailor in Combat Information Center can see what the geometry means. One Iranian warship cutting in from starboard, another pressing from port, the third angling down across the destroyer's projected path, and all 3 moving fast enough that the American captain will be forced to make a decision within minutes. The destroyer continues her lawful transit through international waters, engines smooth, wake clean, no sudden maneuvers that could be interpreted as panic or aggression, but the tactical situation is evolving with the kind of mechanical inevitability that turns routine patrols into incidents that get studied at naval academies for decades afterward. Through long-range optics, the silhouettes sharpen into the angular superstructure and low-gray hulls of Iranian naval vessels. 3 warships now confirmed by Combat Information Center as they accelerate toward intercept courses that will compress the American destroyer's maneuvering options to almost nothing. The captain steps onto the bridge wing and studies the horizon through binoculars, listening to the range callouts behind him without needing to ask for updates because he can hear the numbers falling with each report. Contact 1 at 8.4 nautical miles and closing, Contact 2 at 7.9, Contact 3 at 6.8 and still accelerating, the mathematics of steel and momentum creating a problem that will require more than routine seamanship to solve. On a United States Navy destroyer, tension rarely manifests as shouting or running or dramatic gestures. Instead, it compresses into procedural precision where every movement becomes deliberate and every voice becomes flatter and more controlled. Headsets go on, logs open, watches narrow their focus, and every sailor on the bridge shifts half a step closer to their stations as the Iranian formation continues tightening around the American warship like the closing of a steel fist. Bridge-to-bridge hails go out in English first, then repeated with mechanical persistence. Iranian naval vessels, this is a United States warship operating in international waters. You are maneuvering unsafely, maintain separation, but no response comes back across the radio frequencies, and that silence carries more weight than any threat because professional navies use communications to deconflict dangerous situations, while navies that maintain radio silence during close-quarters maneuvering are choosing ambiguity as a tactical weapon. Through forward cameras, the lead Iranian ship cuts deeper across the destroyer's track. Not enough to force an immediate collision, but sufficient to make the next 60 seconds extremely hazardous as the second vessel presses in from port, matching speed as if measuring exactly how much room the American ship needs to maneuver safely, and then systematically reducing that margin. The third warship holds wider, farther out, occupying a position that feels less like escort duty and more like the outer lock on a trap designed to channel the destroyer's responses toward predetermined outcomes, and what had been open water around the American warship minutes earlier is now becoming a controlled environment where every option leads toward Iranian advantage. Combat Information Center reports new electronic emissions as surface search radars from multiple Iranian contacts begin painting the destroyer. Not fire control lock, which would represent immediate threat of missile engagement, but active sensor sweeps that mean the Iranian ships are building a real-time picture of the American vessel's speed, heading, and turning characteristics. The tactical action officer studies the spacing between contacts and calculates the geometric reality that confronts his captain. If the destroyer turns starboard, she moves toward the ship already sliding in on that side. If she turns port, she opens the angle to the vessel, pressing close from that direction. If she reduces speed, the bow contact gains the advantage in any crossing situation, and if she increases speed, the closure rates become even more difficult to manage safely. The trap is not being built with weapons first, but with angles, using the fundamental physics of ships at sea to create a situation where any American response can be characterized as either panic or aggression depending on how the encounter gets reported afterward. The captain gives his orders with the same level tone he uses for routine navigation: maintain course and speed, log all maneuvers, weapons tight, do not escalate, and the acknowledgements come back from every station with the crisp uniformity that indicates a crew operating under stress but still well within their training parameters. Below deck, systems begin waking up quietly as sensors refine their tracks, cameras zoom tighter on the Iranian formation, and electronic warfare specialists start collecting every radar sweep and radio emission the Iranian ships are broadcasting, building an electronic signature library that will prove useful if this encounter escalates beyond the current level of controlled intimidation. The nearest Iranian warship closes another 1,000 yards, and sailors on the destroyer's bridge can now observe movement on its deck without magnification. Small figures in dark uniforms and helmets moving with deliberate purpose around the forward gun mount. Nothing overtly hostile, but nothing casual either, as the destroyer sends another bridge-to-bridge hail, slower this time and sharper. Iranian warships, you are creating risk of collision, alter course immediately. No reply comes back, and the captain lowers his binoculars long enough to observe that they want us to blink, a statement that requires no response because everyone on the bridge already understands the psychological dimension of what is happening around them. The ship ahead cuts deeper across the bow as the closest point of approach continues shrinking, and Combat Information Center makes the call that crystallizes the tactical situation. Contact 1 now on intercept line, port contact tightening, outer contact maintaining containment position, and that last word hangs in the air for exactly the length of time it takes every officer present to understand that the destroyer is no longer moving through open water, but instead moving inside a shape created by 3 Iranian warships whose coordinated maneuvers are designed to demonstrate that American naval power can be challenged, surrounded, and forced into reactive postures even in international waters where the United States maintains absolute legal right of passage. 5:21 local time, and the ring of Iranian steel around the American destroyer is nearly complete. 3 converging tracks with no radio communications and no wasted motion, every adjustment calculated to increase pressure while maintaining just enough separation to avoid giving the Americans clear justification for defensive measures. The captain keeps his voice level as he orders helicopter alert status and reminds his crew to continue recording everything because nobody gives them a reason, meaning nobody provides the Iranians with video footage of an American warship losing composure under pressure. Outside, the sun climbs higher over the Gulf of Oman, bright on the water and flat on the metal hulls of 4 warships engaged in a contest that looks almost peaceful to any observer who doesn't understand the mathematics of naval warfare. But on the bridge of the United States destroyer, every eye is focused on the closing ring, and every mind is calculating how much time remains before geometry overcomes seamanship and forces someone to make a decision that cannot be taken back. The space around the destroyer continues shrinking, not by accident but through coordinated acceleration as the Iranian ship off the port side adds speed first, its bow throwing harder wake as white water peels off the hull and the vessel pushes deeper into the American destroyer's maneuvering envelope, while the lead ship slides further across the forward track and the outer warship maintains its containment arc like the final piece of a puzzle designed to prove that United States naval dominance can be challenged by nations willing to accept the risks that come with aggressive seamanship in confined waters. Combat Information Center updates the tactical picture in real time as the closest point of approach on the lead contact continues falling while the port contact matches speed and the starboard contact maintains its offset position. Digital lines on screens showing the truth that if the destroyer turns right, she drives toward one ship's closing angle. If she turns left, she opens herself to another vessel's approach. If she accelerates, she risks running deeper into the crossing ship's path. And if she slows, she gives the Iranian formation more time to seal the pattern completely. This is no longer shadowing or routine harassment but controlled suffocation, using the sea itself as a weapon by denying the American warship the room she needs to maneuver safely while maintaining enough legal separation to avoid giving the United States clear justification for defensive action. Multiple narrowband radar sweeps wash across the destroyer as the Iranian ships focus their surface search systems, actively measuring the American vessel's movement and building a live tactical picture of where she is and where she can still go, electronic preparation for whatever comes next in this carefully choreographed demonstration of Iranian naval capabilities. The captain studies the lead ship through binoculars as it cuts closer to the destroyer's bow, close enough that its maneuvers are visible without magnification, and every small course change creates immediate effects on the pressure being applied to the American ship in the middle of the formation, while long-range optics catch increasing deck activity on the port-side Iranian warship as personnel move topside near the forward mount. Not weapons manning in the technical sense, but posture changes that indicate the Iranian crews are no longer in transit mode, but in something approaching combat readiness. The lead Iranian ship cuts deeper across the bow as time to closest point of approach falls to 4 minutes, and the officer of the deck faces the tactical reality that if he orders hard maneuver now, it could be interpreted as either panic or aggression, while waiting too long narrows the options even further, which is exactly what the Iranian formation is designed to accomplish by forcing a visible American reaction that can be filmed and characterized as evidence that pressure tactics work against United States naval forces. Bridge-to-bridge hails continue going out in English and Farsi. Iranian naval vessels, this is a United States warship in international waters. You are conducting unsafe maneuvers and increasing risk of collision. Alter course immediately, but no acknowledgement comes back. No warning, no denial, just engines and wake as the Iranian ships maintain their coordinated approach toward a tactical situation that will force the American captain to choose between appearing weak or appearing aggressive on whatever cameras are recording this encounter. Combat Information Center makes the call that everyone on the bridge can already feel in the deck plates beneath their feet. Destroyer's safe maneuvering corridor is narrowing as the lead contact holds its crossing line and the port contact moves inside preferred separation distance, the first moment when the threat becomes fully physical rather than merely psychological, because a warship does not need to fire weapons to create lethal danger. At sea, steel itself becomes a weapon when distances collapse and momentum overcomes the ability to avoid collision through seamanship alone. 28 minutes past 5 in the morning local time, and the United States destroyer stops merely enduring Iranian pressure and transitions to active response, not with weapons or warning shots but with posture changes that demonstrate American naval aviation's ability to dominate three-dimensional battle space even when surface geometry favors the opposing force. Set active surface posture and launch the helicopter, the captain orders without raising his voice, and that command changes the entire tactical equation because what had been a surface trap becomes a multidimensional problem that favors American technological advantages. Below the flight deck, the MH-60R Seahawk crew moves with compressed efficiency, helmets on and harnesses locked as they execute pre-flight checklists reduced to absolute essentials, because on a destroyer there is no wasted motion when situations transition from pressure to active response, and everyone aboard understands that the aircraft is not going up to attack but to see, record, and apply observation pressure from an altitude where Iranian formations cannot control what gets witnessed and documented. Rotors begin turning as the helicopter prepares to lift off while the three Iranian warships continue their coordinated approach, the lead vessel still on its crossing line, the port side ship still inside preferred separation, and the starboard contact holding wide like an outer lock waiting for the American destroyer to make the wrong move. But now they will have to execute their demonstration of Iranian naval pressure under direct overhead observation that will record every meter of the encounter from angles that cannot be controlled or edited by Tehran's media apparatus. The Seahawk lifts clean off the flight deck and banks hard toward the Iranian formation, its sensors immediately building a comprehensive tactical picture that shows what looks survivable from one bridge can appear as a steel chokehold when observed from 200 feet altitude. Live video feeds streaming back to Combat Information Center where the geometry becomes brutally obvious in ways that surface radar cannot fully capture. Visual on all three contacts, the aircrew reports, formation consistent with containment maneuver, and that assessment carries the weight of professional observers who can see the entire tactical situation without the limitations imposed by surface perspective and single ship awareness. The helicopter sensors begin working immediately as forward-looking infrared isolates hot engine exhausts against cool morning water while zoom optics capture deck movement on each Iranian vessel, details the destroyer could only suspect from sea level, now becoming clear evidence of sailors moving near forward sections, bridge windows alive with activity, and radar arrays still sweeping as the Iranian ships maintain their approach under circumstances they had not planned for when this operation began. Iranian naval vessels, this is United States Navy aircraft, you are conducting unsafe maneuvers against a U.S. warship, change course immediately. The Seahawk crew transmits on bridge-to-bridge frequencies, adding their voice from above to the destroyer's continued calls for the Iranian formation to alter course and maintain separation, but silence continues to be Iran's chosen response, even though that silence now costs them more than before, because every second is being recorded from the air, time-stamped, geotagged, and fed directly into the destroyer's tactical picture where it becomes part of an uneditable record of exactly who maintained discipline and who created dangerous situations in international waters. The destroyer's 5-inch gun turns a few deliberate degrees, not enough to threaten but more than enough to be seen by every sailor on the Iranian warships as the close-in weapon system remains in standby. White housing motionless but unmistakable as the American ship stops pretending to be merely a passive target and begins sending the old naval message in the clearest language possible: we are disciplined, we are ready, and we are not alone. The Seahawk drops lower, not reckless or provocative, but close enough to dominate the airspace above the Iranian formation, where every crewman topside can read the markings on the aircraft, observe its sensors, and understand that their coordinated pressure demonstration is being watched from every angle that matters, which changes the psychological balance because pressure at sea is not only about firepower, but about who controls perception and documentation of what actually happens when warships meet in international waters. Bridge Combat Information Center, starboard contact reducing speed, comes the first indication that the Iranian formation is beginning to feel the effects of three-dimensional pressure as the outer ship's wake shortens and its bow settles slightly lower in the water. Still dangerous and still part of the coordinated approach, but no longer pushing as hard as it had been before the helicopter arrived to complicate Tehran's tactical calculations. The lead ship ahead maintains its crossing line and the portside vessel continues pressing close, but now one piece of the formation shows signs of wavering under overhead observation that makes every maneuver visible and every mistake undeniable, which does not stop a determined navy but can introduce hesitation into crews who had expected to operate without neutral witnesses recording their actions from optimal observation angles. Iranian response shifts to electronic warfare as new radar emissions sweep across the formation, the destroyer's electronic warfare officer reporting starboard contact, painting the aircraft with surface search radar, not fire control, which would represent immediate escalation but acknowledgement that the helicopter has become part of the tactical picture that Iranian commanders must now address. Continue recording, aircraft maintains orbit, ship holds course, the captain orders, and ahead the crossing vessel still threatens the bow while portside steel still presses close, and above them, the Seahawk circles like a witness no one invited and no one can ignore, recording everything as the encounter reaches peak intensity with 3 Iranian warships still maintaining their coordinated approach toward a United States destroyer that refuses to break formation with herself or provide the images of American retreat that this entire operation was designed to produce. The Iranian ship ahead pushes deeper across the bow, not dramatically, but enough to turn a dangerous intercept into a genuine hazard as the formation's geometry begins working against itself, the lead vessel cutting so far across that it begins to compress the maneuvering options not only of the American destroyer, but of the port-side Iranian ship that must now avoid collision with its own consorts while maintaining pressure on the target they are attempting to intimidate. Bridge Combat Information Center, the tactical action officer reports, Iranian lead contact is overcommitting the crossing line, port contact remains high closure, risk of intra-formation conflict increasing, and that assessment changes everything because now the danger flows in multiple directions as the Iranian formation discovers that the box they built to contain an American destroyer has become a geometric puzzle that threatens their own ships if they push the angles too hard in pursuit of the perfect demonstration of coordinated pressure against United States naval forces. The Seahawk crew confirms what radar plots suggest. Lead contact is cutting inside safe separation with portside vessel, recommend continued steady course, their spacing is degrading, and the captain responds without hesitation, maintain heading, come left 2 degrees only if required by navigation, no sudden movements that would hand the Iranians clean visual evidence of an American ship breaking under pressure, because if an opening develops, it will be taken with discipline rather than desperation. The destroyer sends another bridge-to-bridge transmission, Iranian naval vessels, you are creating immediate risk of collision, your maneuvers are unsafe, alter course now, and this time the warning carries additional weight because it is being delivered as recorded notice over open channels while the helicopter captures every meter of closing distance from above, creating multi-angle documentation that will be difficult for any nation to reinterpret or deny afterward. At 37 minutes past 5 local time, the portside Iranian vessel suddenly shifts rudder, not a graceful turn but a correction as its bow kicks away from the destroyer, just enough to avoid driving deeper into the path of its own lead ship, wake bending sharply as spray peels off the hull in the kind of emergency maneuver that indicates a formation losing coordination under pressure it created for itself. Port contact turning out, lead ship still crossing, starboard contact widening, Combat Information Center reports, and that sequence of movements represents the moment when the Iranian ring breaks, not all at once or dramatically, but enough to create the opening that disciplined seamanship can exploit without appearing to flee or panic under coordinated foreign naval pressure. The destroyer does not surge forward or swing hard or exploit the gap like a ship trying to escape. Instead, she does something far more dangerous to Iranian narrative objectives by remaining completely controlled, the officer of the deck making slight course adjustments measured and lawful, just enough to preserve safe passage through the space now opening between the lead crossing ship and the portside vessel forced outward by its captain's last-second correction to avoid intra-formation collision. From above, the Seahawk records everything. The cut, the correction, the widening wake, the near overlap in Iranian maneuver lines, documentation that transforms this encounter from a matter of interpretation into timestamp data that shows exactly how a coordinated pressure demonstration against American naval forces degraded into an Iranian formation nearly colliding with itself while attempting to box in a United States destroyer that never broke discipline or provided the images of retreat this entire operation was designed to produce. The lead Iranian ship realizes it has lost control of the tactical geometry and its stern swings wider as it attempts to recover spacing, while the starboard vessel, already reduced in effectiveness under helicopter observation, falls farther off and out of position to close the outer containment wall it had been assigned to maintain. American ship retains maneuver corridor. The tactical action officer confirms containment formation has degraded, the first clear tactical assessment that pressure originally applied by 3 Iranian warships has been defeated not by weapons or threats but by discipline, coordination, and the kind of three-dimensional thinking that distinguishes professional navies from those that rely primarily on aggressive posturing and coordinated intimidation. 40 minutes past 5 in the morning and water finally begins opening around the destroyer, not dramatically or all at once but sufficient to restore the tactical initiative to the American captain who had maintained lawful course through an encounter designed to force visible retreat or aggressive response that could be characterized as United States escalation in international waters. The Iranian ship that had been cutting across the destroyer's bow no longer holds the same hard crossing line, its angle softening by degrees that matter enormously when steel and momentum are the primary weapons being employed, while off-port the vessel that turned out to avoid its own formation now remains wider than before, no longer pressing the American hull at distances that compress safe maneuvering options to nearly nothing. To starboard, the outer contact continues drifting back, its wake shorter and its role reduced from active containment to passive observation of an operation that has not developed according to Iranian planning or expectations. And inside Combat Information Center, the update comes through in the flat professional tone United States Navy prefers when something significant has occurred without drama or fanfare. Bridge Combat Information Center, all 3 Iranian contacts increasing separation, no current collision vector, American ship retains safe corridor, confirmation that the encounter has shifted from Iranian control to American navigation through international waters, that no foreign navy has legitimate authority to restrict or regulate through coordinated pressure demonstrations. The destroyer maintains steady course and speed through the Gulf of Oman, engines smooth and rudder disciplined as every system remains alert, while above the Seahawk continues its orbit, no longer watching a closing ring but observing 3 separate warships attempting to recover formation after failing to hold the tactical geometry they had imposed on an American destroyer that refused to provide the propaganda victory this entire encounter was designed to achieve. Iranian naval vessels, this is a United States warship. Your unsafe maneuvers have been recorded. We are continuing lawful transit in international waters. Maintain separation, the final bridge-to-bridge transmission, and this time an answer comes back, short and delayed and controlled. United States warship, Iranian naval units are conducting routine patrol. No apology or admission or explanation for the silence, the crossing angles, or the collapse of their containment pattern. Just a statement for the record that attempts to reframe an encounter that has already slipped beyond Iranian tactical control. The lead ship falls off the destroyer's bow by additional degrees, still close enough to observe and still armed, but no longer maintaining the dangerous geometry that had characterized the previous 15 minutes. While the portside vessel holds outside preferred separation and the starboard ship becomes nearly irrelevant to the formation it had helped construct around an American warship that never broke discipline or provided images of United States naval forces retreating under foreign pressure in international waters where freedom of navigation remains a fundamental principle worth defending through professional competence rather than dramatic escalation. Inside Combat Information Center, logs continue building with every radar sweep, every course change, every ignored communication, every second of helicopter video, every measurement of closest point of approach, and every correction the Iranian ships were forced to make when their own trap began collapsing under the geometric pressures they had created. Documentation that matters because in encounters like this, the decisive weapon is not always the missile battery or deck gun, but the uneditable record of who maintained discipline and who lost tactical control first. The Seahawk crew reports that deck activity on Iranian ships is reducing as sailors who had been clustered near forward sections pull back and bridge movement remains active, but the posture has changed from aggressive preparation to something approaching normal operations, while the helicopter banks slightly and holds altitude as the destroyer passes through the final approach corridors that had been compressed by coordinated foreign naval pressure but never fully closed because professional seamanship and three-dimensional tactical thinking proved superior to surface geometry alone. Recover the aircraft when ready, maintain active surface posture until all contacts open. Further, the captain orders no celebration or chest thumping because professional crews do not confuse survival reviving pressure with ending the underlying problem that brought 4 warships together in international waters for an encounter that could have escalated far beyond its current resolution through disciplined American naval responses to coordinated Iranian intimidation attempts. The sun climbs higher over the Gulf of Oman, catching hull lines of all 4 warships in bright morning light that makes the water appear calm and peaceful to any distant observer who cannot see the tension that had compressed around one American destroyer when 3 Iranian warships attempted to demonstrate that United States naval power could be challenged, surrounded, and forced into reactive postures even in international waters where legal right of passage cannot be legitimately disputed. 5 minutes earlier, one mistake could have transformed this into collision, escalation, or worse consequences. The steel had been that close and the pressure that real, but the American ship never broke formation with herself, never provided the images the Iranians wanted, never turned lawful transit into panicked maneuvering that could be broadcast as evidence of successful pressure tactics against United States naval forces operating in accordance with international law and centuries of maritime precedent that no nation has authority to restrict through coordinated intimidation. Combat Information Center makes the final tactical assessment. All Iranian contacts remain visible, no active containment geometry, transit corridor secure, and the bridge absorbs this information in silence as sailors begin the gradual transition from compressed battle focus back toward routine watch-standing, tension thinning, rather than vanishing, because life on a destroyer means one hand always stays near the edge of the moment before situations deteriorate beyond the point where disciplined responses can prevent escalation into something far more serious than coordinated pressure demonstrations in international waters. They had the numbers. One sailor observes quietly as the captain follows 3 Iranian ships receding across the water, and the response comes without emotion or triumph. They lost the shape, which is exactly what happened when 3 Iranian warships with tactical advantage, numerical superiority, and coordinated planning attempted to force an American destroyer into visible retreat and instead discovered that professional seamanship, helicopter support, and disciplined responses under pressure can defeat surface geometry and turn attempted intimidation into documented evidence of which Navy maintains tactical competence when steel meets steel in the confined waters where freedom of navigation gets tested by nations willing to risk collision rather than accept American naval presence in regions they consider their sphere of influence. But this morning in the Gulf of Oman, it was Iran, not the United States, that broke formation first.